snow might fall. The flames from Hanel's torch flickered, causing crazed shadows to jump around the chamber like wild animals leaping from one great stanchion of ice to the next. She reached out to trace her fingers along the path gouged into the frozen snow. The ice was cold, but its power was so strong to the touch it felt like honey in her mouth. Tychonus. She murmured its name softly, as if to greet an old friend. How long ago had this been carved into the ice here? Why did he do it? She remembered as a child asking the village mystic why the paragon had carved these great runes. She could still remember his answer to this day, word for word. Doubt alone is what gives life meaning. We honour Eisenbrad because we know nothing about him. If we knew him at all, he would just be a man. You only follow someone if you don't know the path they are on. She'd been fascinated by the runes since that day. It was her way of following the paragon without knowing what path he had been on. Carving the runes into metal and wood became her world, at least until the Thule came. She shook the dark thoughts from her mind. Those days were behind her. She was determined to walk away from them, just as she had walked out of Otkadov. She turned then to the last pillar and stared at it. 27 great pillars carved from the ice itself, forming a beautiful spiral as they held the roof aloft, each one with a single rune perfectly cut and shaped, all facing inwards towards a single point, the great column of ice at the centre of the chamber. She walked round the central column, running her hand over the ice, but felt nothing. There was not a single mark visible anywhere on its surface. The ice was smooth and featureless, as if the whole thing were unblemished marble. The last rune, the unnamed, the unknown, the unknowable. Why had Eisenbrad chosen this rune for the centerpiece? It is doubt alone that gives life meaning. Overview. Some say that the art of crafting magical items was invented in the north, long before Eisenbrad found the runes. Steiner legends say they brought the skills with them when they fell to earth. Suak legends say they stole the knowledge by trickery from Herdin the Unthinkable, whoever that was. And Calavesi legends say they found the arts in the place where they had been all along. The stories are undoubtedly apocryphal, but the runesmith has a revered place in Wintermark culture, in part because the Steiner especially prize beautiful objects. Those who can make something truly extraordinary, be it jewellery, armour or weapons, a banner or a bracer, a girdle or a garment, quickly win the respect of their peers. When the Thule took Skarsind, they enslaved many of the greatest runesmiths in Wintermark, dragging them back to Otkadov in chains. This terrible blow robbed Wintermark of its place as one of the most important sources of magic items in the Empire. After years in decline, and perhaps inspired by the construction of the spiral sword in Redoubt, the nation began to seriously consider what might be done to create a rune forge in the north and reclaim their status as master crafters. In the process, they identified 5 significant tasks, each of which would help to ease the cost and burden of creating a rune forge or make the impact of building more significant. With 4 of those 5 tasks complete, the time is drawing close to restore Wintermark's rightful place as the home of the greatest artisans in the world. 5 tasks. 4 of the 5 tasks related to building a rune forge at Runegrot have been completed. A rune forge is a huge undertaking, requiring 60 wains of mithril, white granite and weirwood, 45 thrones, and taking a year to build. But there were 5 crucial tasks that Wintermark could attempt to mitigate some of these costs if they chose to build the rune forge at Runegrot, beneath North Spires in Hahnmark. The walls of this vast labyrinthine chamber of ice are carved with runes and guarded by an order of runesmiths, many of whom seek to emulate Eisenbrad, the most famous Wintermark artisan who ever lived. 4 of the 5 tasks are now complete. 3 of them will reduce the costs needed to build a rune forge. The Rime hammer is now back in Wintermark's hands. The ruins of the Gildenheim rune forge have been moved to Runegrot. Barian's challenge has been completed and the reward collected. Completing these 3 tasks means the cost to construct a rune forge at Runegrot is only 30 wains of white granite, 30 wains of mithril, and 60 wains of weirwood. It would still take a year to complete, but it wouldn't require any additional funds for labour. Heirs to Eisenbrad. The artisans taken by the Thule during the fall of Skarsind have returned to Wintermark. The paragon Eisenbrad does not have an inspirational tomb. If Eisenbrad's tomb is constructed with true Liao, the returned artisans will help establish Rune Master's Law, a set of magic items only available to Wintermark artisans. When the Thule dragons outlawed slavery, a 4th challenge was overcome: the return of the lost artisans. When the Thule armies attacked Skarsind in 373 YE and conquered Gildenheim, they captured many of the skilled artisans and runesmiths who lived and worked there. Their raid against the forges at Treji in Herkinia in particular saw several masters of runic lore fall into the hands of the orcs of Otkadov. These prisoners were taken north at the command of the dragons and forced to toil as slaves in the workshops of Nithogir. Now their release has finally been secured and they have come home to Wintermark at last. With Gildenheim now in Imperial Orc lands, most have chosen to settle at Runegrot, creating a unique opportunity for Wintermark to benefit from their mastery of the crafter's arts. These smiths know how to make a number of unique magic items that are not familiar to the artisans of the Empire as a whole. They are prepared to share their knowledge with their fellow Winterfolk, but not the wider Empire. They take great pride in their abilities, and many of them feel great loyalty to Wintermark and their fellow runesmiths. Several of them have carefully guarded their particular lore for centuries. They wish to share their knowledge, but only to restore the prominence and importance of Wintermark as a nation of extraordinary artisans. Claiming a direct line of descent from the paragon Eisenbrad, the smiths of Runegrot have long desired for the site to be consecrated as the inspirational tomb of Eisenbrad. No other community in the Empire has as strong a claim on this important figure. If the caves under Runegrot were consecrated with true Liao, the people of Runegrot would make good on their offer to provide 15 wains of weirwood toward the runeforge. More importantly, however, the presence of the master runesmiths liberated from the Thule would allow the creation of what they have tentatively called the Rune Master's Law. The Rune Master's Law would represent a unique body of knowledge similar in some ways to that possessed by the Urizeni. This would consist initially of schema shared by the lost smiths of Gildenheim. As long as Eisenbrad's tomb remained consecrated with a true aura, however, the people of Wintermark could add further knowledge to the Rune Master's Law. It would mean that any artisan in Wintermark could opt to master those skills and create the items in question, but only as long as they remained a member of the nation. If they left for another nation, they would no longer be able to create the items, since the skills would be useless to them without access to the understanding of the runes granted by access to Eisenbrad's tomb. No Eternal would be involved. This would be a body of law created and curated by the runesmiths at Runegrot. It would be a consequence of the hallowed tomb and the legacy of Eisenbrad. The Wintermark National Assembly could choose to endorse the following mandate. The knowledge of the runes is the legacy of Eisenbrad, paragon of wisdom who inspires our people to this day. All knowledge is incomplete, but with the Rune Master's Law we commit Wintermark once more to the mastery of the crafter's art. We send named priest with 1 dose of true Liao and 4 crowns to consecrate the caves beneath Runegrot as an inspirational tomb for the first runesmith. Synod Mandate, Wintermark National Assembly. This mandate will remain available until the situation at Runegrot changes. If the caves are consecrated with true Liao, then the runesmiths returned from Otkadov will work with those at Runegrot to establish the Runemaster's Law. Initially, this would consist of 7 unique magic items whose secrets they share with their peers in Wintermark. Once the Runemaster's Law is established, it would be possible for Wintermark to expand the magic items available through it, provided they can gain access to appropriate schema. This opportunity is not reliant on the Runeforge being built, although obviously doing so will add additional ways to create new items for the Runemaster's Law. The smiths returned from Otkadov are not prepared to share the secrets of their unique magic items with the rest of the Empire. In the event the Empire declined to support the consecration of Eisenbrad's tomb, the artisans would keep their knowledge. It might be possible to persuade them to create these magic items under certain circumstances, but that would require additional opportunities. Here follows a summary of the items that the Smiths of Gildenheim propose to use as the basis of the Runesmith's Law. Stalwart's Sword, a one-handed weapon which need not necessarily be a sword, that provides the bearer with the will to stand firm in the face of danger. Effect: you gain 1 additional hero point. The weapon counts as a source of spiritual strength for overcoming role-playing effects that cause fear. Hero's Hauberk, a suit of heavy armour, usually a chain hauberk over leather pauldrons, that helps the wearer stand firm against the most terrible wounds. Effect: you gain 1 additional rank of endurance. The armour counts as a source of spiritual strength for overcoming role-playing effects caused by traumatic wounds. Runesmith's Glare. Usually a kite shield, Runesmith's Glare is usually decorated with runes emblazoned or painted onto the rim. This is a talisman, taking the form of a full-sized shield. You cannot make a magic buckler. You must be wielding this shield to use its magical properties. You must have the shield skill to bond to this item. Effect: you gain 1 additional rank of the endurance skill and 1 additional hero point. Eisenbrad's Legacy. This smith's hammer is traditionally made with a stylized white head as if carved from a block of ice. Talisman takes the form of a tool. You must have the artisan skill to bond to this item. Effect: when bonded to this item, you can cast Timeless Hammer Rhythm on yourself once per summit. 3 Tiers. This powerful magical standard usually displays the 3 tiers, the traditional symbol of the Wintermark people. Form: magical standard. The FISREP requirements for a magical standard are more stringent than those of similar items. You must be bearing this banner aloft to use its magical properties. Effect: while wielding this standard, you gain 4 additional hero points. Mediator's Purse. This item usually includes a broad leather hero belt marked with the runes of Lan and Sular. Form: armour. Takes the form of a suit of light armour. You must be wearing this armour to use its magical properties. Effect: you gain 1 additional rank of endurance. The armour counts as a source of spiritual strength for overcoming role-playing effects that would cause you to become angry or confused. And finally, 4 Spirits Mask. This usually takes the form of an animal mask, often of an eagle or a bear. Form: talisman. Takes the form of a ritual focus. You must be wearing this item or holding it in hand to use its magical properties. You must have the magician's skill to bond to this item. Effect: gain 1 rank for casting Strength of the Bull, Hammer of Thunder, Swan's Cruel Wing, and Swift Leaping Hare.